In the first video, we finally finished lining the underside of the roof of our front veranda that was filled in and we opened up 5 years ago. In this video, we'll be finishing off the walls of the front veranda, including a corner that is way out of plumb. The next part of the front veranda that we want to tackle is this corner. This was left when I originally did this veranda because there was the main power cable coming in down here, so I couldn't do anything with it. And the problem with it is the wall, this original post, which was the corner post of the building, is out of plumb by 70 millimeters that way and about 40 millimeters that way. So we've got to make that not so obvious. Before tackling the out of plumb post, there has been a piece split off the bottom trimming from day one that needs to be fixed, as it will be underneath any work we do on the post. This is an easy fix with a small piece of timber cut out of some tongue and groove offcut that just happens to be the correct thickness. We're just brad nailing this in place, then later on fill in any gaps and paint it so it looks like the rest. Now what I'm thinking of doing with this corner is use a couple of pieces of flat pine, just 89 by 18, and make it like a box, because the tongue and groove boards are less out of plumb than the main post, which is a bit crazy, but that's the way it is. We've fitted the first side of the box for the corner that had to be notched around that middle frame member. The top is firm against some tongue and groove that is on the original corner post. As we move down, we can see how out of plumb that post is, and how we had to fit some chocks to hold the new timber in place. Looking at it from this angle, our new fake post isn't as plumb in this direction as we'd hoped it would be. We then fitted the second piece of timber that we had to cut into a taper so it would fit between the original post and the first piece of new timber. We then had to cut a tongue and groove board into a taper to fill in that little gap. And now to the fun part, prepping it all ready for painting. That starts with scraping the surface where the old paint isn't flat or is peeling off, punching in any nails that may be sticking up, more scraping, more scraping, more scraping, then finally a coat of primer sealer stain blocker on all the bare timber and old timber that has been scraped. This seals bare timber, prevents colour from the old paint seeping through, and primes it all ready for filler and undercoat. We then fill in any gaps between the boards with a liquid gap filler from a tube, which is basically a really thick acrylic paint. This is then wiped down with a damp cloth that takes off any excess and smooths it all out so it looks nice. After priming our new fake post, I realised the corner was still quite sharp, so needed to be rounded off with sandpaper. I did this by hand so it wasn't too even and looked more like the original post. This of course had to be reprimed. We need to repaint all of the walls because the veranda was used as a makeshift workshop for a while, so there is a build-up of dirt that needs cleaning off and quite a few gouges that need to be scraped, filled and sanded. It would look a bit odd if we had one nice freshly painted corner and the rest left a bit daggy. We painted these walls with a brush, although could perhaps have done it with a roller, but then with smaller jobs like this, the time saved painting with a roller isn't that much, because it's not that big an area, and saved time can easily be eaten up by the time taken to clean the roller, so we just use the brush. We've also fitted a light to the front veranda, with the wiring run inside the roof cavity, so it isn't seen. We don't like to see wiring or conduits. This light is controlled by a sensor, although the wall the sensor is mounted to is only one thickness of tongue and groove boards, so there is no cavity for wiring, so we had to run it on the surface. But we fitted a piece of timber moulding over the wiring to cover it up and painted this to match the wall, which looks nice. We still need to restore that transom window above the front door, which is quite a job, and will be covered by a later video we'll be making about restoring reclaimed timber windows with glass fitted using traditional linseed oil putty. We're now ready to paint the olive green high gloss oil base paint that is on these French doors, veranda posts and beams. We did paint the French doors originally, but never finished them because we'd just put new glass in, and the window putty must be left a month or so before painting. We did then later on prime and undercoat the putty, but never got round to the top coat, which we're doing now. 5 years later, hey, we've been distracted with other parts of the house and other annoying things such as making a living. We chose this colour originally because it is a darker version of what we chose for the outside walls. That is that greeny yellow colour that blends in nicely with the gardens, so the house looks like it's a part of nature. The handrails and windowsills are darker green again to make them a bit of a feature. Door and window jambs are a dark reddish brown, which is a contrasting colour also inspired by nature to frame the doors and windows and complement the hardwood decking. Once this is sanded and oiled, of course. The colour of the slats for the balustrading is in fact the same formula as the outside walls, but as an oil base paint, not water based like the walls. When the paint for the slats first goes on, it does look the same as the walls, but when it dries it changes colour quite a bit, which was concerning to begin with, but in hindsight, having the slats still a lighter shade, but not as bright a hue, looks nicer, we think. Now we've added a 6 colour on the underside of the roof that is described as a neutral colour, that is somewhere between white and grey, which is intended to be the same shade as the walls and slats, but with a more neutral hue again. White just looked too bright. Alright, the next job is where I painted these windows. You'll notice that I just went straight over the glass, didn't really care, because to cut that in nice and cleanly with a brush is actually quite difficult and time consuming. But we have one of these which can just be used to scrape that paint off. This actually took a while, and I'm thinking probably no faster than cutting it with a brush. Well, after you've done about 100 windows, that is, and get the technique down pat, which I did with my last house project that had textured glass you couldn't do this with. And painting those small pieces of trimming between the wall and roof lining the same dark red-brown colour that is around the doors and windows, as this looked a lot nicer than either the wall or roof lining colour, as it creates a dividing line between the two colours that are the same shade but different hues. In the next video, we'll be repainting the handrails and balustrades that need redoing after only 5 years. Why is this? And how do we stop it happening again?